Casper the Friendly Ghost has a really quirky 90s movie that so many people have forgotten about. So I'm here to refresh your memories and offer up a Casper theory that may be very haunting. Hey guys, it's McGann here to do the fangirl thing, where I either make movies better or worse depending on your subjective pleasure. So when I saw 1995's Casper pop up on Starz, I had to rewatch it. Seriously, I own this movie somewhere out there on VHS, and even I've forgotten that it existed, but it was huge when it came out. So if you have also forgotten about the Casper movie, or you've just never seen it, the short recap is that this spoiled, bratty rich lady inherits Whipstaff Manor, and she learns that a treasure is hidden somewhere in that old house, but alas, she can't get to it because the place is haunted. So the bratty Kerrigan does what any of us would do in this kind of a situation. She hires a ghost therapist, Dr. James Harvey, and Dr. Harvey's job is to move into Whipstaff Manor and convince the ghost to pass on to the other side. You know, totally routine kind of stuff. We do it every day, all the time, no problem. So Dr. Harvey moves into Whipstaff Manor with his daughter Kat, and they soon befriend the sweet little ghost child Casper. Now, Casper reveals that ghosts who stay on Earth don't really hold on to their memories very well. But what Casper does remember from his life is that he got sick after sledding, and then when he died, he didn't go where he was supposed to. Instead, he wanted to stay behind to keep his dad company. The context clues of the movie suggest that Casper was alive during the late 1800s, and his father was this grand inventor who died in disgrace because, get this, he kept telling people that his dead son was haunting him, so he built a machine to resurrect him. And this being a 90s movie, I'm surprised Casper wasn't in the corner going, "Oops, did I do that?" Man, really dating myself there. But moving on from Casper's papa, Whipstaff Manor is also haunted by 3 other adult ghosts. There's Fatso, who's fat, Stinky, who can just burp really grossly, I guess, and Stretch, with the power to stretch. But really, this whole stretching kind of thing is only utilized in one scene with the plunger. I will say this movie is totally cutesy. I don't hate it, but the physics are insanely bad, even for a kid's supernatural movie. There's one scene that was put in every single commercial, posters, folders, notebooks, you name it, where Kat the human reaches out and tries to touch Casper the ghost, and his hand goes right through hers. Ooh! And they're all like, "Oh, it's so sad we can't touch each other." But in a different scene, Casper grabs Kat by the clothes and drags her through the manor. Like, what the heck? Pick a lane. And effects-wise, for 1995 especially, it's a really great-looking scene. But for the rest of the movie, these ghosts are treated like they're solid, covering people's mouths, picking them up and flying away with them, getting sucked into vacuums. Which is it? Are you a material object or not? Or is it that the ghosts are only solid when they choose to be, although that still doesn't make any sense? The whole point of the ghost hand scene was that Casper and Kat were trying to touch each other. I don't know, like I tend to say, I can't fix every problem with a movie, I just try to work with what I've got. But the main rule of this movie is that a ghost can only stick around as long as they have unfinished business. If they've resolved their issues, they poof away and disappear. And granted, that's not an easy task because ghosts start losing their memories as soon as they die. And it's also implied that ghosts start out looking just like their human forms with hair and clothing, and then I guess that sort of gets lost along the way. Sure, I guess after a few decades, what do you need with ghost hair and clothes? But for some reason, when Kerrigan dies and shows up at Whipstaff as a ghost, they trick her soul into passing over to the other side by getting her to say that she has no unfinished business left. Okay, nice enough little Jafar-style trick there to save your life, no hate. But it does bring up the issue of why was Casper still hanging around if his unfinished business was keeping his father company? I mean, Papa was in his prime in the late 1800s, so so surely by 1995, he's gotta be dead by now. So let's explore why Casper hasn't moved on yet. Like I mentioned, when Casper recalls what he can about his past life, he said he stayed behind so his dad wouldn't be sad. And his dad clearly knew that Casper was still around because he built that whole Lazarus machine to bring him back from the dead. We also know that that machine works because Dr. Harvey has an accident that kills him, which forces the Lazarus machine to use its one and only shot to bring somebody back from the dead on Kat's dad. So Casper was present, the Lazarus machine worked, and Casper's goal in the movie was to use the Lazarus machine to regain his life. So why didn't Casper come back from the dead as soon as his father made the machine? And why didn't the death of Casper's father prompt Casper's own spirit to cross over too? There's really nothing to account for it. I mean, we could argue that Casper did use the Lazarus machine back when it was built, and he came back to life and lived his life and then died later. Maybe Casper and his dad did reunite amongst the living and they went and lived happily ever after somewhere else so that nobody would hear rumors about a resurrection machine. You know, you can't really go around town anymore after your kid's been brought back to life. People would be like, "Hey Steve, isn't that Casper?" "Yes." "Didn't Casper die 5 years ago?" "Why, yes, he's doing much better now." I mean, people would think you're crazy, like they wouldn't know what to do with that. So who's to say? Maybe that's a scenario that did happen. Maybe Casper came back to life and then either died again while a child again, because this kid is just the most death-prone kid in the universe, or he could have died later in life and just took the form of a child and moved back to Whipstaff because that's the only place he could remember. It's a mega stretch, but it is a possibility. However, since the Lazarus machine only had one make you living again dosage, it does kind of seem more like Casper's father never succeeded in bringing his son back to life. So, the theory I prefer is that even though Casper stayed behind to be with his father, he immediately lost all memory of who his father was. So Casper was flying around all day going, "Hey, wanna play?" having no idea who he was talking to. And that, of course, would prompt the dad to make this machine to try and bring his son back to life. Like, he's right here, I can see him, he just needs a body. However, even if Casper's father was some brilliant inventor, the Lazarus was still a huge machine. And the pathway to get to his subterranean workshop had multiple different chairs that could bring you down. So it seems like the good doctor was not working alone. He probably had a minimum of a research assistant or two, if not engineers or something to that degree. And with the Lazarus elixir being unused, it implies that something serious happened before the machine could be tested. Now, it is probable that Casper might have just refused to go inside of the machine because he didn't remember who his dad was and was like, "I ain't doing nothing this wacko inventor wants me to do." But it's also possible that Casper's father did not want his son's spirit to be the guinea pig. Because, you know, you don't know what's going to happen the first time you try an experiment like this. You might vaporize Casper's soul. So Daddy Dearest would have needed to create a ghost or two to test the machine out. That could explain Casper's uncles, who don't actually seem to be related to Casper at all. So it's more like they popped up one day in Whipstaff and went, "Oh, we're your uncles," so that way they could stay there with Casper and exploit his lack of memories. So instead of being Casper's actual uncles, they're the research assistants of his father. But they were killed inside of Whipstaff Manor to test the Lazarus machine. And if I had to guess, I'd say those research assistants did not take too kindly to what their boss did to them, so they killed him too. Presto! Now we have a trio of adult ghosts aimlessly hanging around the manor forever. I'd say that Stretch used to be Casper's father because he seems to be the leader of the ghost group. He just commands the other or reins them in as he desires with no explanation. And obviously, Ghost Dad would have the unfinished business of needing to resurrect Casper with the Lazarus machine, so that kept his spirit in Whipstaff Manor. And who knows, maybe Fatso and Stinky are also still around because their main mission accomplished goal was to get the Lazarus machine to work too. But time went on. All the ghosts quickly forgot what they were doing or why they stayed behind on Earth, and now they haunt and torment the living just to amuse themselves. So to try and tie this theory up in a nice little bow, all the ghosts are really stuck in this paradox. Stretch is stuck with unfinished business because he hasn't brought Casper back from the dead, and Casper's unfinished business is to keep his father happy, but he doesn't remember who his father is. And if I'm right, and Stretch is Casper's papa, Casper still can't resolve his unfinished business because his dad is also a ghost in the same house, meaning Casper will be keeping his father company forever. They're in a gridlock, and neither one of them can move unless Casper is resurrected back to the living. Then Stretch, Fatso, and Stinky could cross over, and Casper could live his life and die with no unfinished business. Fingers crossed. But since the Lazarus machine is out of fluids and there are no instructions on how to make more, it seems like this weird little ghost family is going to be keeping each other company for all of eternity. It might not be reality, but theories are more fun. Ha 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 ha. Man, really gonna date myself there. And Stretch with the power to stretch. And Stretch with the power to stretch. Stretch. And I grant you, maybe Casper and his dad did reunite amongst the living, and they just went to live somewhere else so that word of a So why didn't Casper come back from the dead as soon as his dad made the machine? Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, "Hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that?" Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.